There's very few indie rock bands out there that you can say defined the whole genre, while simultaneously creating a turning point which would spawn a whole new generation of indie bands. And that's where the Strokes come in the early 2000s, coming out with their laid-back garage indie rock sound, which would go on to inspire countless new bands. Today we're going to look at exactly how the Strokes defined their sound and changed the indie genre forever. Before the Strokes, the indie scene was already pretty well defined, with bands like the Smiths in the 80s, the Pixies, Oasis and Stone Roses in the 90s. The 2000s, however, were up for grabs and the Strokes came out of the gate swinging. With their seminal album Is This It being released in mid-2001, they single-handedly changed the course of indie rock music forever. Their first album to this date is still full of absolute bangers that pretty much everyone knows, and their sound was a big departure from the music before. Super laid-back garage indie rock and even lo-fi sounding in places. Let's take a look how Nick Valenti and Albert Hammond Jr. defined the sound of the Strokes in the early years. Of course, you can't talk about the Strokes without mentioning Julian's vocals, which are super unique and melded the sound together in the most perfect way. Albert and Nick have always had pretty similar gear until the most recent album, but it's the way in which they incorporate the gear into their sounds that really makes their tone and sound so recognisable. First off, let's take a look at Albert's gear. He's using an Olympic white Japanese Stratocaster reissue from the 80s, pretty standard, right? Apart from the fact that he almost exclusively only uses the middle pickup, having even gone so far to actually wire the guitar so he can only engage the middle pickup. Nick Valenti's guitars, on the other hand, are a bit more varied. He seems to have used the Gibson Les Paul Jr. style guitar in the early days, but he's most recognisable with his Epiphone Rivera with two Gibson P94 pickups installed. Let's take a look at a song that really highlights both of their signature guitar sounds. looked at the guitars, really unique in their own right, and are synonymous with their signature sound, so now let's have a look at the amps and pedals that they used. Nick and Albert were always big fans of the Fender Hot Rod DeVille's, a big, loud 60-watt clean amp from Fender. Albert has been seen to be using high watts at certain points as well, but now let's get onto their pedals, which the majority of their sound comes from. Everyone knows that they use a Jekyll and Hyde pedal, as it's almost as famous as their guitars in terms of recreating that signature Strike sound. It's a distortion and overdrive pedal in one unit. If you really want to get the Strike's tone, this is the pedal to use. Albert and Nick used the Jekyll and Hyde to great effect, relying heavily on its distortion tones, but also using the overdrive sound in places, most notably to boost distortion for lead lines. Let's take a look at some of their most interesting guitar tones, which was said to actually be blowing up their amps in the studio while they were recording. So there you go, and an example of how they use the distortion and overdrive from the Jekyll and Hyde pedal to great effect. The distortion side of the pedal is said to be based on a Marshall Shredmaster or a Proco Rat, and the overdrive section is said to be based on a classic TS-808 Tube Screamer. So if you have any of those pedals lying about, you could just use them, which is exactly what I'm doing today. I'm using the 1981 Inventions DRV for my distortion side and a JHS Bonsai for my Tube Screamer type. I really like this combination and I've used it a lot in my videos because it gives me lots of flexibility as well. There's not a whole lot of difference in their guitar tones in the first two albums, so you can easily nail both albums with this kind of setup. For 1251 I was just using the neck pickup with the tone rolled down a lot and a bunch of mid-heavy distortion to get that synth-like tone. But distortion isn't the only sound that the Strokes went for on their first two albums. There's a lot of songs that are using a lot lighter mid-heavy overdrive, and that's where the Tube Screamer side of the Jekyll and Hyde pedal really comes in handy. Perfect example of this is this next song. So as you can see, using a clean Fender style amp, a great distortion pedal in the realm of a Rat or Shredmaster, and a Tube Screamer is pretty much all you need to nail that signature Stroke sound. Of course, a semi-hollow guitar with P90s and a Strat gets you even closer. Let's take a look at one more song which really highlights their signature sound. there we have it, how the Strokes defined a whole generation of indie rock with their timeless garage rock, lo-fi indie sound from their first 2 albums. It's amazing just how simple their setups are, but at the same time how effectively they use these simple setups to really craft a signature sound that is instantly recognisable. Again, Nick Valenti deploying his Epiphone Rivera with P94s into a Jekyll and Hyde pedal and then into a Fender Hot Rod DeVille, and Albert doing pretty much the same but with his Japanese Fender Strat reissue on the middle pickup with those classic ceramic pickups. So what are your favourite Strokes songs? What tones do you find the most interesting from their discography? For me, I absolutely adore the latest album. It's got a lot more adventurous with the songwriting, the guitar tones used, and there's loads of fantastic different guitar parts on that album as well. Let me know down below what your favourite is. So that's the video, so if you liked it, please leave a like, comment and subscribe, and hit the little bell notification for me as well. That way you'll be notified of every time I upload a new video. And right now there's going to be another video on screen that you can go and check out. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.